Hotep brothers and sisters, how you doing? Are we ready? All right, beautiful. There are some instructions that I need to give you. My name is Lionel Jean-Baptiste. We have a great panel that is assembled here today to participate in this great event. I want to welcome you and ask that you, if you have your phone on ringer, put it on vibrations. If you don't have a vibe option, then turn it off. I want to make sure that you understand that those yellow cards are for purpose of getting information from you, because no movement can go forward without the people. So we need you to participate. Please fill out those cards, and someone will be around to collect those from you later on. We have a number of great participants in this program. We have, of course, our Dr. Wayne Watson, who is the president of this great institution. We have Dr. Jeremiah Wright, who will be giving us reflections. We have Brother Kim Howard, co-chair of NCOBRA, National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, will be bringing us greetings. We have the Honorable Don Trotter, Democratic Senator from the 17th District of Illinois. We have Dr. Ron Daniels, founder and president of the Institute of the Black World. Dr. Conrad Worrell, director of Carruthers Centers for Inner City Studies, formerly the president of the National Black United Front. We have Ms. Joanne Watson, former councilwoman of the city of Detroit, who has been engaged in the fight for our rights, for reparations, and other important issues. We have the Honorable John Conyers, Jr., who has given us H.R. 40, who's fighting on the front line for us in Washington, D.C. We have Her Excellency Rhonda King, Ambassador to the UN, representing St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who will bring us greeting from Dr. Ralph Gonzalez of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who have been, those folks have been on the front line at the CARICOM level in the Caribbean around the demand, making the demand for reparations. We also have our friends and comrade Don Rojas, who is Director of Communications from Institute of the Black World, who will be introducing our keynote speaker, the Professor Hilary Beckles, who is the chairman of CARICOM Reparations Commission. So that will come to you later. We also will have greeting from Dr. April Bernard, professor at Chicago State. And on your program, too, you will see that we will have greetings from the Brother Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We will also have a message and the charge, a call to action from Dr. Ivor Carruthers, General Secretary of Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference. And so we want you to be patient. We want you to listen. We want you to be attentive. Not only that, there will be a request that you commit to help us do the work. And as you know, Frederick Douglass said, if there's no struggle, there can be no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning, and they want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. So if we are going to revive the reparations movement, we have to sustain it. And sustaining it means your engagement. And so this is about work, people. We'll be educated today, but this is about work, trying to get all of our commitments so that we can move forward. And so as we move forward, I want to introduce Dr. Wayne Watson to come forward and give you the welcome. Thank you. Before we proceed, we are going to do the libation. Okay, please stand so we can do the libation.
If we stand tall, it is because we stand on the shoulders of those who have taken their great and mighty walk. But before I utter another word, I seek permission from my elders, if I may have permission to speak. We don't play with eldership. Eldership is to be revered. It is deference. You may not like it, but you must learn to respect it, because one day you too will be an elder, and you don't want that disrespect coming at you. And so, we call out to you who is known by many different names. We bear witness that your children have assembled here today. We've assembled to take up the mantle, to continue the fight for African liberation. We ask that our words be like arrows dipped in honey, that when they find their ways to our hearts, that they are soothing. They do not cause pain, but they cause joy. We ask that when we pour the drink, that you say the word libation. If you're of a Yoruba persuasion, you may say Ashe. Kemetic orientation, you may say Hotep. If you're out of the Barakongo region, you might even say Yebo. And if you're just a brother and sister that's feeling what's going on up here, you can say, right on, Brother Kwesi. We feeling you today. And so we pour this drink for those ancestors whose bones lay beneath the Atlantic Ocean, that beckon each and every one of us to reclaim our bird of passage. In the spirit of Sankofa, 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 we pour the drink. We call out to those ancestors who are still in our ancestral memory. We utter their names today because they are the examples to sample of womanhood and manhood, of righteous African resistance. And so we utter the names of Cecilia Fatima and Boukman. Yes, you who lit the torch for African liberation in the Western Hemisphere, and a shining example of Haiti being an independent country. May it reserve in our hearts that we always remember our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. We pour this drink right now for those ancestors whose names, again, that we know, those that who came to these shores. And so we utter the names of Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser, Fannie Lou Hamer, Ida B. Wells. You know the names, call them out. Utter them on this day as we honor them, as we say in pour libation. We call forth the ancestors of our own line and lineages. You know, the mamas and the papas and the babas from your line and lineage. You know, the ones that when you go to those family reunions, they say, boy, you look just like Uncle so-and-so. They live through us. They speak to us. If others can have guardian angels, we can have our ancestors. It's not spookism. It's not superstition. It's real. Come have your drink, ancestors, as we say in pour libation. And now we call forth the unborn child, because we know the unborn child is the absolute's way of saying that life must go on. But we ask that when that child comes in its own time, that it holds every one of us assembled here today accountable, that we dare to fight, we dare to struggle, for African life is worth fighting for. Come have your drink, unborn child, as we say in pour libation. And if we truly, truly believe in our hearts that we are an African people, our brothers and sisters in Mali, the Dogon, we have a sacred word called the Nomo, which is sacred speech. If you speak it, it manifests itself. Watch what you enunciate, watch what you pronounce, and change how we communicate with one another. If we want love in our communities, we have to start speaking it. We want respect in our communities, we have to start speaking it, because we have the power to bring into existence whatever it is that we will. Ashe, Asante Sana, Medasi. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwesi. Kwesi is head of the Male Resource Center at Chicago State University. Chicago State University is honored to host this historic national and international forum on revitalizing the reparations movement. Further, under the guise of CSU's mission, Chicago State University is honored to be a stakeholder with the Institute of the Black World 21st Century and its president, Dr. Ron Daniels, in conjunction with the Carruthers Center for Inner City Studies at Northeastern Illinois University and Dr. Conrad Worrell, and the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference and Dr. Iva Carruthers. To ensure an opportunity for open dialogue on student and faculty and community involvement, Chicago State University proudly steps forward as a stakeholder. In this connection, we are extremely pleased to have our keynote speaker, Sir Hilary Beckless, Chairman of the CARICOM Commission on Reparations, and our special guest speaker for today, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam, and the Congressman of the 13th Congressional District of Michigan, the Honorable John Conyers, Sr. We are delighted that they are participating in this historic forum. We want to salute the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Honorable Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, the Chairman of CARICOM, whose leadership helped provide this momentous occasion through CARICOM's 10-point reparations initiative. Assembling this gathering today will help renew the discussion of the critical issues of reparations for Africans descended from people throughout the world. CSU is both happy and humbled to host this forum. I must say, as an educator, education must be one of the cornerstones of reparations. It must be. Part of our repair is how we see the world and how we see ourselves. We can misplace money. We can lose money. We can give money away. We can misspend it. But we can never misplace an education, lose money. We can never lose an education. We can never give away an education. So as an educator, I say, as part of reparations, education must be one of our cornerstones. Once again, I humbly welcome you to Chicago State University on behalf of my faculty, my students, and my community. Thank you.
I want to let you know that this session is being streaming live even in the Caribbean. So this is an international effort. At this time, I want to bring Reverend Jeremiah Wright. You don't need any further introduction of that leader. Thank you.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference, our executive director will be bringing the charge to us later on. We represent 22 different denominations, 37 different seminaries that cooperate, sending their students to us for credit for courses. And on behalf of all of those who are a part of the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference, my reflection has to do with the Christian scriptures before we have prayer. The Christian scriptures in the 19th chapter of the Gospel according to St. Luke gives us the paradigm for reparations. The curator at the Charles Wright African American History in Detroit points out, using the words of Naeem Akbar, Baba Asa Hilliard, and Dr. Bobby Wright, founders of the Association of Black Psychologists, that European slavery, as a matter of fact, Dr. Worrell, Dr. Carruthers, and others in this room worked on the transatlantic slave trade. Dr. Welcher said, please stop calling it the transatlantic slave trade. The Atlantic ain't never put nobody in slavery. The European slave trade had instigators and collaborators. Instigators and collaborators. And some of the collaborators look to your left and look to your right. They look just like us, who collaborated in that slave trade. Well, Jesus went to visit in Luke 19 a collaborator, one who had become rich, taking his money from the Roman oppressors. He was of Jesus' faith and Jesus' race, but his income as a collaborator came from the oppressor. And when Jesus got through talking to him, his name is Zacchaeus, we call him Zacchaeus. He said, I'm going to engage in reparations. Whatever Jesus said to him was so impressive that he said, I'm going to give back half of what I got. All this money I got from collaborating, I'm going to give it to the poor. And from all of those people that I stole from, the Yoruba, the Ibu, the Ibibiyu, the Fon, the Fanti, the Ga, the Akan, I'm going to pay them back 4 times what I stole from them. That's called reparations. It's in your Bible. I know you don't like to read that book, but read that book, 19th chapter of Luke, and you'll see the biblical paradigm for reparations, the basis of H.R. 40, why we are here today, why we are revitalizing this important reconciliation move in terms of being reconciled to the people, to the countries, and to the continent of Africa the European slave trade tried to decimate. Would you bow your heads in prayer? Oh God, we come to you, some of us calling you Allah, some of us calling you Yahweh, some of us calling you Makpe, some of us calling you Nyame, some of us calling you Unkulunkulu. We come to you, God, asking your blessings upon the deliberations of this afternoon, asking your blessings upon the effort of those who seek justice for the children and grandchildren, the yet unborn generations who have been victimized by the European slave trade. Bless our deliberations, bless our planning, bless our actions, bless this afternoon, we ask, as you bless each person here, we ask in the name of Jesus our Lord, and all the people of faith will together say, Amen, Ashe Hotep. God bless you.
Thank you, Reverend Wright. We now want to bring before you Kim Howard. He's the co-chair of the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America.
First, let me clarify something. I am the co-chair of the Chicago chapter of the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. And before I go on, I too must ask permission from the elders to speak. Today is a very, very special day for us here in Chicago. We have in the House, as was stated, the Dean of the Congressional Black Caucus, the senior-most member of the U.S. Congress of African descent, and an indefatigable reparations advocate, the Honorable Congressman John Conyers. We have a tireless thinker and organizer on the major issues facing the black world, Dr. Ron Daniels. We have Detroit's strongest reparations voice in the City Council, Councilwoman Joanne Watson, and Illinois' strongest voice in the state capitol, and Senator Donnie Trotter. We have 2 of the elite African-centered warrior scholars in the African world, and certainly no other 2 sit at the top of the list of scholar activists here in Chicago than Drs. Ira Carruthers and Dr. Conrad Worrell. We have one of Chicago's premier reparations attorney in Judge Lionel Jean-Baptiste. And we have the superior follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and leader of the Nation of Islam, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. In addition to all of these great reparations minds we have with us today, standing in the place of His Excellency Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, the President of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and a Pan-African warrior scholar in his own right, Dr. Hilary Beckles of the University of West Indies. This indeed is a very special day in Chicago and in America for people of African descent as we assemble here to revitalize the reparations movement. And COBRA would like to offer greetings to all who are represented here today. In COBRA, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America wholeheartedly endorsed this gathering. We are certain that many of the founders of NCOBRA those who are no longer with us in the present, are guiding our steps from the realm of ancestryhood today. Dr. Omari Obadeli, Queen Mother Dorothy Benton Lewis, Baba Kalonji Olusegun, Sister Njeri Algahini, Chicago's Baba Hannibal Afrique, and Mama Erlene Aripo, Reparations Ray Jenkins, Kwame Afo, and the recently deceased mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, Chokwe Lumumba, are just a few of the founders of this tireless workers of this great organization who did not live to see the fruition of their work. However, make no mistake about it, what we're here to discuss here is a result of the work that those visionaries has done, all of them standing on the shoulders of Callie House and Queen Mother Moore. In addition to working with Congressman Conyers in 1989 when he first introduced H.R. 40, the Commission to Study Reparation Proposal Act for African Americans, a bill that he has introduced in every congressional session since then, and Cobra has had many major contributions and accomplishments in the reparations movement. It was in Cobra who purposely, intentionally, and strategically set out to, quote, make reparations a household word. It accomplished that by the year 2000. Few blacks by that time had not heard of reparations. Our work even inspired director Spike Lee to name his company 40 Acres and a Mule. And Cobra gave to the African descendant community in America what we call the 5 injury areas. These are what we hold are the major areas that reparations resources should be targeted: economics, education, health, criminal justice, and our peoplehood. And Cobra's legal commission was instrumental, along with the Reparations Coordinating Committee, in preparing litigation against the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma, on behalf of the Tulsa survivors, those blacks who were still living that experienced the terror attacks, bombing and burnings of Black Wall Street. Our legal commission was also highly active in the 2003 litigation against many major corporations that criminally injured our ancestors, injuries that have exacerbated and seem almost insurmountable today. Although we were unsuccessful in the outcome, our efforts again prove that this nation is bent on continuing its criminality against people of African descent indefinitely, nor has it any intention, without being forced, to engage in the healing and repair process on its own. However, these actions on behalf of the courts has also made some of us even more unwavering in our resolve and more relentless in our struggle. In 2001 in Durban, South Africa, the World Conference Against Racism, and Cobra had a large presence amongst the Durban 400, true sheroes and heroes of our time. It was one of Nkobra's founders and chair of our legal commission, law professor and attorney Ajua Ayatero, who delivered the Afro-descendant and Afro-diaspora message to the African Governmental Caucus there at the World Conference. In Bridgetown, Barbados, in 2002, what was organized as the African and Afro-descendant Caucus follow-up in Durban, the caucus adopted Nkobra's definition of reparations as the definitive definition of reparations for the African world. That definition is, reparations is a process of repairing, healing, and restoring a people who were injured due to our group identity in violation of our fundamental human rights by a government, corporation, institution, or individual. Key to that definition is repair from injury to one's humanity. Also key to that definition is that there are 4 classes of criminals. In other words, injuring parties. They are governments, corporations, individuals, and institutions. In Chicago last year, Nkoba went up against Norfolk Southern Railroad, one of the most egregious corporations that began criminally injuring our ancestors in 1832 and continued well into the second half of last century via this nation's convict leasing system. Well over 100 years of criminal injury. And finally, there was Nkoba who introduced to the African world earlier this year in Johannesburg, South Africa, at the 8th Pan-African Congress, where I met Professor Beckles, what we're calling the 21st century reparation paradigm, reparations enforcement. As you see on my t-shirt and those of others who are active in this campaign, we declare we are reparations enforcers. We are unequivocally clear that there's a new thrust in reparations activism globally, understanding that the Durban Declaration and Program of Action, which you will hear more about today, made it an international statement of fact that reparations are a human right for people of African descent. It is because of this long, unwavering history of the successes of NCOBRA as the vanguard for the reparations movement in America that I invite you to attend our national conference in June in Indianapolis. With that, again, NCOBRA welcomes all to this program, dignitaries, scholars, activists, business community, laymen, women, men, and youth of all ages. We also want to acknowledge the other reparation organizations that are working on the ground here in Chicago, the North American Reparations Task Force and the Black is Back Coalition. NCOBRA fully endorses this great gathering and thank the organizers for allowing us to extend these greetings to all.
Thank you, Brother Howard. At this time, we would like to bring to you the Honorable Donnie Trotter, Democratic Senator of the 17th District of Illinois.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the sake of brevity, I'm here to greet our guest. I want, I have been asked on behalf of you to greet our guests who have come, some near and some from very far. I humbly have accepted that task, one as a graduate of Chicago State University, as a resident of this community, and as the elected voice of this community in Springfield. I welcome each and every one of you to Chicago State University. I welcome all of you to the battleground of the reparations movement. We have a lot of work to do. I know if you guys, if we're like me and those have come to me and said, why is this a revitalization? This is just a nudge forward in this protracted battle that we've had for years. And no one knows that better than Congressman Conyers from Detroit, who has pushed forward this mission since 1989. And it is our job to ensure that it still is pushed forward until we get repair in our community. So with that, again, welcome each and every one of you. I know we're going to have a very fruitful meeting, and we here are all reparations enforcers. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Trotter. The next speaker is supposed to be Dr. Ron Daniels, but he has to do closing remarks, and so he has asked me to just put him towards the end of the program where he will communicate all of his thoughts that he had prepared for us. And also because we running on a real strict timetable. Congressman Conyers has to leave by a certain time, and so we want to make sure that we get to him. But at this time, we want to bring our own Dr. Conrad Worrell, who needs no introduction in the Chicago area. He has been on the front line of our struggle. He is former president of the National Black United Front, has led a lot of these struggles. Thank you very much. Dr. Conrad Worrell.
If I didn't do what I'm getting ready to do, all the thousands of people who are watching this program on webcast would run me out of the movement. So I say to you, Black Power. I say to you, Black Power. Now, Brother Cam has been studying under us, and he stole a little of my thunder in his presentation. That was pretty good, brother. You're learning. But he left out a few names. In the history of our struggle and those who have advocated for reparations for the descendants of African people, not only in this country, but in the Western Hemisphere, people like Henry McNeil Turner, Edward Wilmot Blyden. And when we speak of Callie House, we have to understand that the word that she was using for her fight was pensions, because white folks were getting pensions and black people were not getting anything. So she organized in the 1890s the National Ex-Pension and Slave Association, and She fought and she filed the first reparations lawsuit in 1915 in Tennessee. And the federal courts indicted her on mail fraud, and they told Callie House that, you know, white folks would never give you what you're asking for. And so it wasn't Garvey, it was Callie House who was the first one convicted on mail fraud in 1915. And we can't forget the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his role in fight for reparations. When you read Muhammad Speaks and the continuation of that demand and the final call, when you read the pages, you can't forget Dora Abubakar and Queen Mother Moore, who went to the United Nations in 1962 demanding reparations. And of course, Cam mentioned Dr. Imari Obadele and Queen Mother Dorothy Lewis Benton and Brother Hannibal Lefree and Reparations Ray out of Detroit, Michigan, the city that thinks they know all about reparations, Joanne. And our brother Chokwe Lumumba, whose son is carrying on his legacy. And for all of you listening today, all of you on the webcast, we know there's a mighty election in Jackson, Mississippi, where his son will carry on the repair of his father, and of course, Malcolm X. And finally, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. So in that context, there was a conference called in Durban, South Africa, through a lot of fight and struggle of Cobra and many reparations groups, and my friends out of the December 12th movement in Brooklyn, New York, under the leadership of Viola Plummer and Roger Wareham and Omar Wale Clay, who crafted a strategy that emerged into becoming known as the Durban 400, and the National Black United Front joined with the December 12th movement and pulled a coalition of reparation activists that focused in on the following: that the transatlantic slave trade, slavery, and colonialism were crimes against humanity. So 400 of it. We went to Durban, South Africa, laser beam to focus in on the governments of the world. There were 165 governments in Durban, South Africa, 15,000 people from all over the world. And we fought and we struggled and we went all over the world to preparatory meetings. We went to Geneva several times. We went to Vienna. We went to places in Central America. We went to Africa for a preparatory meeting. We flew all over the world to push this idea so that it would be included in the outcome of Durban, the Durban Declaration, that the transatlantic slave trade, slavery, and colonialism were crimes against humanity. And you know, crimes against humanity, there are no statutes of limitations in crimes against humanity. It's a crime. So what a mighty fight with the United States government walking out of Durban, with Israel walking out of Durban, because they knew that they didn't want the nations of the world to agree that the slave trade was a crime. You understand where we're going with this? This is why this meeting is so important, because the CARICOM 10-point plan picks up on this crime and is threatening to file a lawsuit against the slave trading nations, particularly focusing in on the British. So listen to this. In Durban, South Africa, we were victorious in its outcome of putting the language in the document, even though there was a compromise and it didn't exactly say that African people were owed reparations, but it said something like this: we acknowledge that slavery and the slave trade, including the transatlantic slave trade, were appalling tragedies in history of humanity, not only because of their abhorrent barbarism, but also in terms of their magnitude, organized nature, and especially their negation of the essence of the victim, and further acknowledge that slavery and the slave trade are a crime against humanity and should have always been so, especially the transatlantic slave trade, and are among the major sources and manifestations of racism, discrimination, xenophobia, related intolerance, and that African and people of African descent, Asians and Asian descent, and indigenous people were victims of these acts and continue to be victims of their consequences. So an international fight and language, we went all the way over to Durban, South Africa, just to fight for this language to be in a document. Do you understand what I'm saying? That it is a crime against humanity. And there are no statutes or limitations on this crime. So all over the world, it was declared that the transatlantic slave trade was a crime against humanity because black activists from all over the world, from Central America, from the Caribbean, from Africa, those Africans in Europe united on this position. And so we came back September 8th from Durban, South Africa, and you know what happened. 9/11. And so the reparations movement took a big hit in this country and around the world, particularly inside the United States. So what our brothers and sisters have picked up on in the Caribbean under CARICOM and under the leadership of Ralph Gonzalez and under the scholarship of Sir Hilary Beckles is profound and prophetic at this moment in history, because there were more Africans stolen out of Africa who are in Jamaica, Barbados, Bermuda, Panama, and many of the Central and South America than they are in the United States of America. So it's timely that our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean come up with this 10-point plan in preparation to sue these slave trading nations, which is a continuation of the Durban Program of Action, because it was in fact a crime against humanity. So our ancestors who fought so hard, I know Baba Hannibal Lafree, who was a friend of Minister Farrakhan, is looking down on this meeting tonight. I know that our recent ancestor, Chokwe Lumumba, who was at Howard University when the concept of the National Coalition for Blacks for Reparations was created, an idea to take a page from what the Japanese had done in the early 1980s to create a study commission to study the impact of interned Japanese, and created a study bill in which the Japanese received reparations. We want to thank you, Congressman Conyers, for keeping that up. So we want to thank everyone for coming today, because we are clear that a strong people never give up for fighting what happened to them. They don't give up no matter who says what. You never give up fighting for the injustices and the repair from those who damaged you, and there's no one that's been more damaged than people of African descent in all of humanity. And so therefore, thank you for coming out today. Let's rebuild this movement and Black Power.
Dr. Conrad Worrell, always a walking history book, always has the information, and we get mesmerized by just listening to him. Thank you, Dr. Worrell, but you didn't talk about the lawsuit, the work that we did beyond that, but that's okay. When you come back later, you can talk about that. That's okay, brother.
He filed a lawsuit for free. It's important. He didn't get paid.
That's not the point. But anyway, brothers and sisters, next we have the former Councilwoman Joanne Watson from City of Detroit.